Hey, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Everyday Disciple podcast through the Intentionally Uncommon Studios. Today is our very first episode with my friend and our special guest, Cody Roberts. Cody, how's it going?
It's going well.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the second time I've been the kind of initial person on the initially uncommon podcast, whether it be Foundational Fathers or now the Everyday Disciple. So
Yes, Cody is our new favorite guinea pig. So before we get started, want to make sure we pay our bills and shout out our sponsors. Pretty Good Wood Turning, where the wood is more than pretty good. It's dad approved. Wouldn't know, but
yeah,
because I'm not a dad, not because I don't know how to wood turn. Sasquatch Gun Oil, keeping your gear smooth, silent, and legendary. And also through one of our broadcast partners, Faith Points TV, where this show is broadcast weekly to encourage families and fathers everywhere. And for those of you who go use Pretty Good Wood Turning or Sasquatch Gun Oil, we do have a promo code. Cody, do you happen to remember the promo code?
it is FFP316. Let them know that Foundational Fathers podcast sent you. So use the promo code every time.
Thank you, Cody. He's also our new favorite sponsor help. So, again, thanks for being the first guest. I appreciate this. So, just since most people aren't going to know, you and I have known each other for a decade now, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. We were roommates for 3 years, 4 years.
Yeah, 4 or 5-ish, somewhere on there.
Okay. Yeah, about 4 or 5 years. And went through quite a lot of interesting experiences. But I think maybe I know it was a little different. So you're about 5 years older than me, so you were a little further ahead in life than I was when we first started living together. But I know that during that time period, there was a lot of unique experiences and growth opportunities, I think is fair to say.
You could say that.
At any point in time, for the majority, I'd say over half the time that we were there was at least 2 other people living there. Who that was changed sometimes,
quite a bit.
But I think the thing that I probably learned the most during those times was I learned a lot about communicating and learned a lot about conflict resolution. Considering that some of the people that we lived with had different methods of conflict resolution or maybe conflict avoidance than than I did. But I think one of the things I learned from you a lot was the importance of investing in the other men that were living there and being very intentional about supporting each other. As somebody who did go through some pretty tough stuff myself, knowing, we had people who lost parents while we lived there. We had people who went through some, very, very rough things in other areas that I just won't bring up. But I felt like even then, like even when I was younger, I felt like I learned a lot from you about interacting with each other in an intentional way around stuff that people were struggling with. And I feel like that's a thing that everybody kind of needs. But I especially think when it comes to younger single men, we're really, really, really bad at being like, hey, I have an emotional problem going on, or I have a personal issue that I don't have any solutions for. I don't know. Did you feel like, I mean, you know the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, but do you feel like that was I felt like that was a learning experience, probably for both of us, but.
Oh, for sure. First off, thanks for talking me up there. Just a little background for everybody who doesn't know. I've worked in mental health field for a couple of years. I went to school, graduated with bachelor's degree in psychology, immediately went into community mental health. And I've kind of been in that area in some facet, basically since I graduated, excluding a couple of years where I worked in manufacturing for a little bit. But Primarily, I've been in or around that field. I mean, I've worked in ministry. I now work with individuals with disabilities, but even then, it's working in a mental health area, or at least human services. And so I've always been focused on that kind of like softer side that a lot of guys don't really get. We're, I mean, we're guys, we're taught growing up, you got to be strong. Guys don't cry, all this other garbage that we've got to recondition ourselves. Um, it's okay to share emotions, and it's hard sometimes to get to that point. And so, big focal point for me is when people are going through tough times. I try to be direct about it. I try to be like on point with, hey, I know you're going through this. Let's talk about it sometime. Let's go get coffee. Let's do dinner, lunch, whatever it may be, or let's just hang out. Like if you need time just to kind of deal with something, let's hang out. Let's do something. And so that's something I know I was really good at, especially when I was living in the house with four other guys or three or four other guys. Like it was easy to know what was going on with everybody.
Yeah.
And so I think that made it a lot easier to just be direct, be like, hey, I know you're going through this. We've had a little bit of discussion. Hey, we've got small group together. Like, let's dive into this. And so, I don't know. I've always been one that is a much easier listener than it is for me to talk. And so, I'm really good at having silence. And so, making people uncomfortable is kind of easy for me because that silence is very uncomfortable for a lot of other people. And so it forces them to talk in ways that they don't really expect to. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can speak from personal experience. Cody's great at making you feel uncomfortable when you don't want to talk about something. Um, but I think that you said something also that's really important there that is a prerequisite for this, because I think one of the things that happens is, especially younger guys, when they first get involved in the church, they hear those conversations of like, hey, you need to discuss the emotions that you're struggling with. And so then they just go home or go to guys and they just start asking them questions, and immediately you're gonna get clamped up. And what you talked about is doing stuff intentionally to community build.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know those aren't the words you use for it, but
Right.
that is what you're doing. Is you have to be in relationship with somebody first, and I think the thing that guys have a really hard time with, right, is trusting that they can be vulnerable with somebody else, even if it's not really something that is that vulnerable. To them, it feels like vulnerability. Then they're not going to talk about it unless they trust you. And the weird thing for guys is that trust, I don't feel like gets built from having those conversations first. It gets built from the like more surface level stuff. And that has to, I think the biggest thing about that is it takes time,
Yep.
right?
Yep. It sure does.
And you have to be willing to invest your time in people. And yeah, I mean, we've both had the experience, right, of work, of like living or working with people who um, don't communicate well or don't do emotion well. Um, and the process, I feel like, for that sometimes requires a lot, like does require a lot of really specific intentionality. I mean, what are there things that come to mind specifically for you that are like, where if you come in contact, whether it's through work or something else, that you come in contact with somebody and you know, I'm going to be spending a lot of time around this person, I need to develop that, like I need to be able to develop that level of comfortability. I understand it's very different between like men and women, right? But what are things that you go to as you're like, this is how I need to build a connection with this person?
Oh, I think it's definitely finding kind of a common ground of interest, and kind of gauging where they're at. Are they willing to um, build build a relationship of like, um, I know one of the areas I struggle with a lot is I like to joke around.
Mm-hmm.
I like to be sarcastic. I like to just kind of be playful about things. And sometimes I don't really pay attention to that stuff very well.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's caused me some problems in the past. So I try to get better at even those elements of like, hey, I need to be more mindful of how I'm responding to people, because they may be taking it a completely different direction than what I am. And so I may be trying to build a, like, hey, I'm just joking around with you kind of relationship, but they may take it offensively. They may be like, well, this guy doesn't give a care about anything. Like, he's joking around and not paying attention to my needs.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just being mindful of how I'm responding to others, while I'm trying to gauge like where they're at, their comfort level with me. Um, I mean, I'm not very abrasive, or at least I don't feel like I am when it comes to meeting new people. I try to be open minded, let them know, like, hey, if you need anything, feel free to reach out to me. Like, kind of gauging, um, again, their comfort level, gauging where they're at in their life, kind of what I can connect to with them is the biggest thing. Like, I like playing video games. Um, I like going to church. That's the biggest thing where I work now. Not a lot of people are churchgoers, but I've made that very known. And so, like, I've been able to have uh, God centered conversations even with people who are atheist or like don't identify as Christians. And so it's been a lot of fun just doing that. Um, and so, like, I don't know, it's definitely trying to build a foundation where, um, you are able to kind of people watch. That's probably
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorite things to do, is just watch people, because you can kind of see how they interact with others. You can see how they respond to others, and you can see how, like, their relationships are grounded.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another thing, that if I'm given that opportunity, I will sit back and watch how they interact with other people around them. If it's just a one-on-one thing, it's definitely that comfort of like, hey, let's find that common ground. But if they've got other people around that they've been in relationship with, that they are able to kind of interact with, it's definitely trying to build off of that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I do feel like we could do an entire other podcast just on discipling in your like secular workspace, because I know, so the manufacturing place that Cody worked was the same. I worked there at the same time, and I know what that was like. Um, and like I know, like we talked about your work now. Like mine, for my workplace felt a lot like I was kind of banging my head against a wall for the year that I've been there, and then last week I baptized a coworker, and we've got another one next week, and it was just like it just happened like overnight, and I remember I had a conversation with Caleb Greenleaf, our campus pastor, not all that long ago, and I said, sometimes I do feel like with ministry, like you're just banging your head against a wall over and over and over again until all of a sudden you're not, and then you're just kind of like, okay, that was clearly not me. But no, I do think there was a kind of a through line to what you said that I think can be summed up almost as just saying you have to actually care about the person.
yeah,
And you have to actually be interested in them, not because you feel like that's your responsibility. And I think that's the thing, is like it's easy to, especially early on in my faith, it was very easy to be like, I'm supposed to do this. And it was actually incredibly disingenuous. And people can tell that. And it's like, actually, it turns out it's way more effective to just like try to be friends with the people, because one, it makes your life better anyway. But also, that's the only thing that's real. And if it's not real, what are you doing? Like, and that's so like I mean, you brought up like, don't fake interest. Talk about the stuff you're actually interested in.
yep.
And that's, I mean, sports is a really good one for guys most of the time.
Oh man, fantasy football is like a different religion for me.
Yeah.
I got 5 different leagues that I'm in, including a foundational fathers league. So,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I can
but
literally see your draft board from here.
oh yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
yes, we had a whole conversation about that,
Currently
about that
undefeated.
draft experience. Shocking after looking at the draft board. Um, but no, I do think, yeah, I think that's a really good point, that to bring like just the intentionality level of caring about the people. Um, if I can like just switch what do you think are the biggest challenges that you run into that?
time,
Mm.
being patient
Hmm.
enough. Um, like I said, I like making people uncomfortable and sitting in silence, but being patient over it may take weeks for people to get comfortable. Um, when I'm wanting to help right then and there is a struggle. I went into the human services field because I care about people. Like that's just who I am. Um, I love what I get to do on a daily basis because I am literally helping people differently every day of the week. Um, and so it's a blast. But being patient sometimes to getting to be able to do something that is beneficial. Um, I mean, you've seen my patience at times with things I want to happen just because I know it's the best for people involved. And God just saying, nope, not right now. I got other plans. Like things like that. It's frustrating because, like, I'm going, man, if only you would listen to me right now.
Mhm.
Um, I think patience is a big one.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, yeah. Time is a really big, especially whenever you feel like you had the right time, and then the other person changes their mind, or you're like, this is the seventh or eighth time we've had this conversation. I know, like, I work with a lot of like younger college students, and I feel um, like we have conversations about uh, things about the college lifestyle that they feel dissatisfied with, and then we have the conversation about like what the alternatives are, and then the next weekend I have the same conversation again, and then the next weekend I have the same conversation again, unprompted, and you're like, okay, you're talking to me about this because it bothers you,
yep.
and I've offered you alternatives, and your response has been, yeah, that's the right decision, but I'm not going to do it. And then you have that we're having the same conversation again the next week, and there is a certain level of it's easy to get frustrated, and also really easy to forget like what I was like 10 years ago. um you may remember better than I was because you had to live with me back then. Yeah, it's what you have any big win stories that come to mind, as far as like, I mean, obviously I know you can't, I don't want you to use names or anything, but like,
Oh
what
yeah.
are some big win stories that come to mind for you? 'Cause I think it is important to be able to give people like, this is the experience that I had.
I think for me, I probably won't use the one I was referencing just a minute ago, just because that one's a big one, but it's not. It's more of a personal one for me.
Mhm.
But I think the first time I was able to baptize someone,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
like knowing that they were giving God everything they had, or just watching people that I've been able to minister to, either inside or outside of work, and watching them get in the baptistry. It doesn't have to be me doing it, but knowing I was a part of that story is probably the most rewarding thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because it doesn't matter at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're in the water with them or not. You're going to be spending eternity with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the big win. Um, yeah. Um, I think another big one is like when I spoke about my coworkers earlier, like I've got one that's wanting to join the worship team now. And so like making that connection, or when I walk into the church, there's individuals that are um, like recognize me and they're waiting to see if I'm on stage, or they're waiting to wave at me or say hi to me. Like having those connections that I've made outside of the church and being able to connect them inside of the church has been a big win. I've got another individual that literally will seek me out every day of the week. And then at church it is, hey, can you help me with this?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, man, it's so big. Or seeing people that I never would have expected from previous jobs um, coming to the church.
Yeah.
Like for me, that's big wins too. It doesn't matter if I brought them or not. Like
Mm-hmm.
knowing that they're coming to church.
Yeah, that's definitely an experience both of us have had
Yeah.
over the last few months.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it yeah, that probably is that probably is the thing, is just those people that you've had the opportunity to minister to, especially when they're young, right? I mean, I think the one that came to mind for me immediately, it was Kyler. I mean, because you baptized him at camp,
Yeah.
and then he was in, and then I had him in a small group for 2 years, and just knowing I look at where he was at 16 a few years ago, whenever that first happened, to, I mean, watching the way that he was, as he's an adult now, but watching him, the way that he was able to interact with and like love on the middle school kids, and just, I mean, he came back and visited just a couple weeks ago, and he went in, and I was like, hey, do you want to do the small group? And he was like, yeah. We go in there, and just watching those kids, just captivated, listening to him, I was like, that's incredible to see. And it's all a God thing, but getting to, I think the word that comes to mind is, it feels like a privilege
Oh yeah.
to get to be there and just be like, listen, man, I didn't feel like I was accomplishing anything. So I know that I wasn't accomplishing anything. So that is just getting to be there and watch what God did is so cool. And yeah.
It is. I mean, I did kids ministry before. Um, I got the opportunity to work in the church at in Keokuk, like, and now seeing those kids just kind of lead others
Mm-hmm.
is awesome. Getting to see, we'll use Nick's son Max,
Yeah.
for example. Like I had him in kids ministry way back when, and seeing him get to lead, seeing him not only just serving in kids ministry, but in the tech booth and like all the
Mm-hmm.
different ways he serves in the church now. And knowing he got baptized not too long ago, like that's huge wins.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's there's another kid that seeks me out. He's ornery as all get up, but he's known me since he was in kindergarten, and
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we're thinking of the
he
same kid.
seeks me out today.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
He's not going to be 18 for a few years, but if we're still doing this in about 4 or 5 years, I'll have a lot of stories to tell you.
oh man.
But
But having those connections still be there from probably 8 years ago
Mhm.
is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something special about it with there's definitely something special about it whenever they're that young. It is. I think part of that too is, I do think my patience level is longer with kids. Um, I know, because, man, whenever it comes to, especially, maybe this is wrong of me, but I have a much shorter fuse whenever it comes to when I'm interacting with like guys that are peers. I think that's something that I personally need to work on a lot. Of just, I set, like, if we agree to a standard and you break it, I'm now upset with you, and maybe I don't think I'm as full of grace in that as I should be. Um, but I think the other thing that I know that I need to work on too is like not being a hypocrite whenever it comes to this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I have a tendency to um, ask people how things, like what's going on in their life, how things are going, and then want to pull back whenever they try to ask it in reverse.
You give that normal, hey, yeah, I'm good,
Yeah,
and
I
leave
do
it
that.
there.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Um, and I know, like, we've had that conversation before. Um, what are some ways that you try to check that in yourself? That's, and I can speak for experience. I understand you're not perfect at it, but like, what are some things that you do to try and check yourself in that?
um, well, we've got a really solid group of friends, and we have a little group chat on GroupMe. Um, I've forced myself to put prayer requests in there, um, especially on topics that I don't want to talk about very much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, I'll be completely honest. A couple weeks ago, I lost an aunt and an uncle,
Mm-hmm.
husband and wife, and like first thing I did was put in that group chat, "Hey, be praying for my family," all of this stuff, and then left it there because I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't talk about it leading up to the losses because
Mm-hmm.
I knew one of them was coming, not the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but forcing myself to at least put it out there in the open to people, so that conversation could be started, is a big thing. If I don't want to talk about it, then I'm pretty good at avoiding it. But for the most part, I try to force myself to at least put it out there so that it is out there, and I can say I've at least made myself open to the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not perfect at it, like you said. Um, I think there's always going to be an element of pride of wanting to do it for yourself.
Mhm.
That's something I've definitely struggled with over the years of like, I tell myself I compartmentalize really well. Uh, and for me, um, I had the worship pastor, like I was on the weekend of on stage uh, the weekend I was supposed to be or had to go to the funerals and all that stuff. And he double checked with me, like, "Are you okay? Like, are you sure you want to do this?" I said, "Well, Thursday night I'm not going to be there, but Sunday morning, yeah, absolutely." And then I showed up Thursday to thank him, and he checked on me again. Like having that strong community
Mhm.
is definitely something that you've got to build. And when I say a strong community, it's more so like I've got friends that I can chat with online, but a strong church community, because they're the ones that are going to be like, okay, we need to talk about this. Actually, put it out there. Where my community outside of the church um, are just going to laugh it off with me, maybe play some games to try and distract me, do whatever, which is not bad at all. Like, hear me when I say that, because having those distractions is good. It kind of gets you in the right frame of mind, um, at least for that time being. But once you lose that community and you don't have people to talk things through, you're going to go back to the same mindset. And so, having that kind of realistic, like, hey, we need to have this conversation kind of element
Mhm.
um, definitely puts you in check. And so um, I'm blessed to have a really strong community in the church. So
Yeah, and I think it's important. This is probably going to be a running theme on a lot of these podcasts that we do. We'll talk about community, and the biggest thing I can emphasize to anybody who's like younger, who's college age or something, keeping a strong church community once you are an adult on your own is hard. It takes a lot of effort. I mean, a lot of effort. And it's, you're gonna, sometimes it's gonna fade and sometimes it's gonna come back, but it's, you have to be very intentional about it. And part of that is looking for the people who are going to force the issue on stuff,
yep.
who are going to call you out, one, but also who are going to uh, love you in the way that you actually need, and are willing to put the effort in towards you.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, I mean, an experience that we've had the last few years within that has definitely been like people that we know getting married and or having kids, some of them, and their entire priorities change because they're supposed to. Being like, for me, being the single guy in that, it's like, okay, I'm the one who needs to adjust to be able to still have a relationship with them
Oh yeah.
in these circumstances, and going, okay, what does it look like to still love on them in this way? Great example, I mean, is we had a friend recently who was trying to build a concrete porch in his backyard. It's kind of like one for himself, but also like as a gift for his wife, who's also a friend of ours. And so, I mean, collectively over 3 weekends, we probably spent 18 hours putting together that concrete pad.
Maybe closer to 10 for me, but
I was say it was honestly it was significantly longer than it needed to be, but the trade off is like, you know, now there's something that's probably going to be a part of their house for the next, for who knows how many decades, if
yeah.
as long as, assuming it doesn't, assuming we didn't do something terribly wrong, be there for the next several decades of their house. And it's like, you know, that was an investment in them. um and I probably spent the most time, like probably spent the most time with him that I spent since he stopped living in the house that we lived in together.
Yeah.
um and that's a effort thing that you don't do that for somebody that you don't love. And it's, that's a thing that you like, that's just one example, but like taking advantage of those opportunities of going, yeah, this is, no, I was not looking forward to helping lay concrete. I was kind of looking forward to being able to, even when we were doing a project like that, spend time with somebody who I care about that I hadn't seen in a really long time.
Yep.
Even when you go into it knowing like there's going to be a point during this process where he's going to get very irritable, and, and then seeing it happen because you knew it was going to happen. It's like, actually, you know what? There's also a part of me that missed this a little bit too. Um, but the the effort level that's required, I think, in part comes from. I think you brought up a really good thing earlier about like going out and being the one who asks, but I think that just as important is a real relationship is reciprocal, right? You have to offer that.
Oh yeah.
Like you have to offer the opportunity for people, and that's I feel like that's kind of the mind trick you have to play on yourself, right? Is
Yep.
like, well, the best thing I can do for them is tell them what's going on in my life right now and trick yourself into being like, no, no, this isn't me being vulnerable. This is me helping out. And then you do that enough times and eventually you get more comfortable with it.
Well, and the good thing about our friend group in particular is if they see something that you're not sharing
Mm-hmm.
things about somewhere else, they're gonna go, "Why didn't you say anything?"
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, they'll call you out because they see it somewhere else or they hear about it from somebody else, and they're like, "Oh, like they didn't say a word to me about this." So, like, now I'm going to go call them out because I'm mad.
Yeah.
And it may not be the most healthy way to go about it, but they're going to try and be helpful because they love you and they
Mm-hmm.
want what's best for you and they want you to be not have to go through those ups and downs alone.
And I think it's also the thing of you don't get that passionately upset about somebody you don't care about.
Yeah.
And so that's why you learn to appreciate it anyway. Um, so I guess the last one of the like these sorts of things then that I will that we'll talk about would be um, how do you how do you address and deal with this sort of stuff when it's not somebody who's like a friend. And what I mean is like for people who have to deal with this sort of stuff within their family, how do you address that? Because it's a little different where if things don't go well with somebody at work, okay, you know, if it's some things don't go well, having these sorts of conversations with somebody who's a friend, all right, well then I have the option of like we I can other friends can be brought into that situation.
Sure.
Family's a different animal.
Family is a completely different beast. Um, I'm still trying to navigate that.
Okay.
Um, Not just with the losses of the aunt and uncle, um, but like it's been a about 11 years in about 2 weeks. It'll have been 11 years since we lost my little sister in a car accident. And having those kinds of conversations with my parents has been a struggle over that time frame. The cool thing is like the more you're open about your beliefs, the more you're able to love on them and yet um, let them know where your faith stands and everything like that, the more they're willing to, over time, the more they're willing to have those conversations. Like it's been really cool to kind of watch the progress of my dad being very angry at God,
Mm-hmm.
not knowing where he stood on like his whether he believes in God. Like he wouldn't even use God um, in a sentence to like now he'll regularly say like, well, I'm not in control, that's God's thing, like, and I haven't yet gotten him to the point of being in church,
Mm-hmm.
but his heart has softened so much over that past 11 years to where I can have biblical conversation with him,
Mm-hmm.
um, and real conversation of like, how are you doing, or like, where are you at with this? um, I I'll tell everybody this. That funeral I went to, there was a joint funeral for my aunt and uncle. Um, I was curious on how it was going to go. Little did I know, my cousin's husband um, was the one who was going to officiate that funeral. I've had a handful of conversations with him, but after that funeral, the amount of respect I have for that man, because he just put it all on God. He was able to bring my uncle to God in July, like had conversation with him, um, and like then just putting it out there. If you want to, like at the end of the funeral, it was, if you want to have that relationship with God too, it's not too late. You can, and we can do it right now. And him just praying over everybody and having them join him in prayer, asking God to be in their hearts, be in their lives. Like, and if they fully wanted to commit to that right then and there, like him doing that and being that bold, that kind of boldness is what we need.
Mm.
That kind of boldness is what we need to be able to have, not just with strangers, not just with friends, but within our families. And it's challenging at times because that is the most intimate relationships you're going to have.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it's also the most fearful because you don't want to offend anybody, or you don't want to upset them, or you don't want to ruin a relationship that has literally been there your whole life. But it's the most important conversations to have. So
Yeah, I can relate to that. I know the thing. I don't think I've, of all of the things that I have been proud of my father for, I've never been more proud of him than at my grandpa's funeral a few months ago when he gave the eulogy in front of all of the people there. Just like, was like the most important thing that my dad ever did was introduce me to church, because that's where I was able to meet Jesus Christ, and then just turn the entire, I mean, basically turn the eulogy into a sermon in a lot of ways. Um, and yeah, but it is, but I mean, it also took, it took 70 years for him to have those conversations with his brothers. Um, because I think there's an element too of like, they've seen you at your worst, and so you just feel like a hypocrite.
yep.
It's, I think giving that sort of stuff to the Lord is maybe the hardest thing. Um, I mean, I think maybe you better at telling this story than I am. Um, of just like how incredible God can be with that. You talked specifically about your parents. I don't know if you'd like to share the story from when COVID first happened, which is to me maybe one of the most incredible God moments that I've ever seen.
Well,
Um, that when the
that
announcement came down that they were shutting the country down.
that was the story I wasn't going to reference earlier, but
Oh, okay.
sure, I'll go into that.
We'll tell it now
We'll
because I
dive
already
into
brought it up.
it.
And
But no, at the time I was working as a um, it it was a 2-year residency, but I was leading the children's ministry in Keokuk, and we had this wonderful pandemic called COVID come around,
mhm,
and at the time we weren't sure how it was going to impact us until one day you and I were driving to go grocery shopping.
yeah,
I was super excited because like my birthday weekend was that weekend. My parents had agreed to come to church, and I was like, man, this is a God thing because like I can get them there before like anything happens. Like I can get them there, and it's been so long, so God's moving right now. And then I get a message, and it's an email with a video from our at the time lead pastor, and it was a video that said, actually, we're going to close the doors effective immediately. The church is no longer going to be open, and we're not sure how long this is going to last, but we are going to go strictly online starting this weekend. Um, the excitement instantly turned to anger,
mhm,
instantly turned to frustration. Me being so upset, and that is an understatement, that I pounded my fist on the dash
mhm,
and threw my phone in the car. So it really didn't go very far, but um, and just being distraught, not knowing what I was going to do. Um, so then I go, I think I need to go to the church and pray. I had a key to the church here in Macomb. Wasn't sure if it was open yet or not because I know they were supposed to have life recovery there. Um, and so we redirected. We went to the church. I invited our small group there, to which one person responded um, and came and joined us at the steps. And while we were there, had a conversation with that person, and I knew they'd been talking to our college pastor at the time to about getting baptized, all this stuff. But then they said, I just had a really bad week. My girlfriend and I broke up. I got told that I could be shipped off. The person was from France. They were a student at Western, and so um, they were on a school visa, and so they just found out that they could be shipped off at any time due to COVID. Had a lot of stress going on in their life, and they said, "I really just want to lock myself in my room and just sit there on my bed until I got the message, and I felt like I had to come over here." And so at the time, he didn't know what was going on. He didn't know why we were at the steps or anything like that. But after having that conversation with him, I ultimately said, "Well, man, I don't know if this is my place or not to say this, but they're not going to have church in the building going forward until COVID's over, or until we know more information." And so there's not going to be a chance other than tonight. I don't know what it would look like. I'm getting baptized, anything like that. And if you're not ready, don't feel like you have to do it. But I can get Grant here. We can have that conversation, and we can get it done right now if you want to. And the man chose to go ahead and be baptized that night. And it went from anger to elation and celebration because God was just like, nah, I'm going to show you I'm still in charge. I'm still going to move through you. I'm still going to use you in a way that's going to glorify me, regardless of who it's with. Just give it all to me. That Monday, 3 days later, he was deported back to France.
Yeah.
And so he would have had no other time to get baptized. So, like, in a moment of pure just frustration and anger, God's like, "No, I'm going to show you. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to use you to do it." So,
yeah, he's got a pretty incredible way of doing that. I know the last couple weeks have been felt like a revival at church, and it I do think these like major events end up having a big impact on people coming to church, but I think a lot of the impact in people's individual lives comes down to being willing to have these conversations, right? Like, are you willing to do what it takes to be vulnerable yourself? To do you actually care about the people? Are you willing to take the time? Are you willing to be patient? Are you willing to be kind and loving? Um, and I think that you do a really good job of doing that for people, and I think that it's an example that a lot more of us need to have. Last question, ask everybody before we go. Favorite Bible verse and why?
oof. You know, I'm going to steal one from our former college pastor, now the campus pastor in Keokuk, because Ephesians 2:10 is so good.
Okay,
It's
getting a lot of Ephesians 2:10 here.
Yeah, but you know what? We're all God's masterpiece, and sometimes that's hard to remember. Um, I don't like a lot of myself. Like I'm just straightforward about it. But I've learned to love myself. I've learned to love who I am, and while I have things that I need to take care of better, I am in a much better place than what I used to be, um, because I've learned to love the person that I am, and that means a lot of different things. So, yeah.
Appreciate that. I like that. I'm feeling better and better about putting it out there that that's my favorite because it keeps getting brought up. So, well, I love you too, and I really do appreciate you coming on and talking about this. I think that it's really important. So, this was the inaugural episode of the Everyday Disciple podcast with me, Seth Burris, and Cody Roberts. And thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Bye, everybody.